This is the Selected Podcast, your backstage pass and exclusive access to some of the biggest names in the tech industry. Brought to you by Sesamers, the definitive name in tech event media.
Hi there, this is Ben from Sesamers, recording live at Slush 2025 in Helsinki. Today I'm meeting with Sarah Fleischer, co-founder and CEO of Tozero, Europe's first and only battery recycler successfully supplying customers with recycled lithium and graphite. Last year they raised 11 million euros from Nordic Ninja, Honda and others to build their first industrial plant. Hi Sarah, how are you doing?
I'm doing really good. It's great to be here with you.
Thank you and welcome to the Selected Podcast. You're a mechanical engineer. We went from launching a 150 million space VC fund in Luxembourg to founding a battery recycling startup. What's the connection between space tech and lithium recycling?
Oh, that's very interesting. You know, my co-founder and I, we met in space. So Xenia, who's
You meet in space?
Yeah, we met we both worked in the space industry.
Yeah.
I worked in the space agency. My co-founder worked in a space startup. And it was one of these kind of social events, I think in a space café, where we met. These social events are literally called Space Cafe in Luxembourg.
I was looking like, what is this? But
yeah, exactly. So we met in the Space Cafe and we had a nice, lovely wine. And by end of the evening, we signed on a napkin that one day we're going to found a company together. This was 3 years prior to starting Tozero. So life parted. We went through our careers. I went to a scaling up strategy and partnerships at Fordo, digital supply chain unicorn. And my co-founder went back to university to invent the breakthrough how to efficiently get lithium out of end-of-life batteries. And it got Nature published, so it's literally a breakthrough. And she called me, hey, here's a scan of the napkin. You're forced to start a company together. And so here we are. So now we're 3.5 years in, doing Tozero, and it's working really well.
That's amazing. But what is the connection between space and lithium? Just the fact that you met?
We met in space, yeah. Just that.
Why did you decide to work on this particular subject?
Mm-hmm. That's a very deep one. This is my third company. So I've done 2 companies that were more money-driven, more economical-driven.
What do you mean? What were they?
What does that mean? The first one was e-commerce, how to sell things super fast with high margins. The second one was selling luxury items to Chinese tourists that came to Europe. It was all about how to make money fast. You know, as a young founder, I was 22 back then.
Did it work?
It didn't. And that's where I realized with my third company, the third one has to be something where every single morning, because founder's life is shitty most of the time, every single morning when I wake up, it has to be something where in my head, I'm just thinking about the company. I'm thinking about the problems. I'm thinking about how to solve certain problems. Even tonight, I was dreaming about some things about the company. This is a good sign because I feel like a lot of founders fail just because they're deeply not rooted in the cause and the mission of their company. So they start to think about plan B. They start to think about escape scenarios to save themselves, to jump off the ship before the ship even sinks. And that's the moment where the company just breaks. So for me, it was super important. It has to be a topic where every morning I just dream about it. I think about it. There's no other thing I could do in my life because I am sacrificing my life and my energy on this topic. So that's super important. And personally, I've been diving since I'm 15 years old. The coral reefs, I see coral reefs just dying for the last 15 years or even more, or I'm a bit older than that. And it's just super sad. So I think I'm super connected from that environmental cause. I'm a mechanical engineer. My professors always taught me, hey, electrical vehicles are not sustainable. I want to prove them wrong as well. They are sustainable if you are able to recycle them and also produce batteries that utilize recovered materials to produce new batteries. It is possible. And that with that, Tozero is kind of showing the pathway of the future of abundance of critical raw materials through recycling of lithium-ion batteries, and with that, we're independent.
So, and you did that in basically 2 years?
3.5.
I was like reading this, so you were founded in 2022?
Yeah.
And you delivered your first commercial recycled lithium in April 24?
Last year, April last year. We were the first, and it's insane because when we started, you had these big guys like BASF, the big wonder kids that should dominate in this industry. And, we're like this tiny little startup, very naive. Everybody's challenging us. How can you ever beat the BASFs of the world? And we did it.
So you're based in Munich?
We're based out of Munich, yeah.
How many people are in the company in that timeline, like this 22, 24?
Wow. Around 10, 15 full-time people, yeah.
Versus how many on the other side?
Sorry, on the
BASF one?
Wow, I think there are like 200. Yeah, that's
Nice.
the dimension difference. And of course, they have way more money, way more capital. And they've been working on it for more than 10 years. And, like we come in 2 years.
So how can you compress this in 2 years? Like practically speaking, like how do you make it?
I think like the basic thing is we never challenged or we never set borders of scaling. We tried to scale as fast as possible until it didn't work. And then we went 5 steps back to change processes, to amend designs of engineering parts. So our innovation is based on the processes, on the design of equipment, and also kind of like the magic sauce that we're using, the chemicals. So we really try to get the boundaries. Having a no is a success at Tozero because then you know the limits. So for the first 2 years, it's just scale, scale, scale. Just imagine in the beginning, from the breakthrough where we started, it was just a 200 milliliter kind of little tube that you know from university. And we scaled that up to 500 liter reactors, up to 4,000 liter reactors until it didn't work. And then we went downsizing again until we figured out how to improve the processes, and then we continued to scale. So I think that's something that a lot of hardware companies don't do, especially not the big corporates. They spend a lot of time in R&D, in design, to figure out all the risk portfolios until you do the next step. We skip that. We just let's go all in and just see where the chemistry actually breaks. Not the physics, but the chemistry. Where does the chemistry breaks? Yeah.
And right now, it breaks at what size?
We haven't found the limit yet. It works. I mean, we have done really good work. It doesn't mean we didn't have setbacks throughout the time. We did, and then we just went back and scaled it again, really fast manner. But until now, it beautifully works. We're setting up our first commercial demo plant 1 hour away from Munich. It's in a Second World War chemical park, which is pretty cool. Huge legacy of the German chemical industry. I don't want to get too much into detail there, but Germany was really good in chemistry. Now it's a different story, but we want to kind of push that forward again. And
how big is the plant for this? Like
yes,
the one you're opening?
So this is all on the industrial scale. This has never been done before in whole Europe. Lithium and graphite extraction on that industrial scale. And this scale should be able to process 1,500 tons of lithium-ion batteries. So car batteries, consumer electronic batteries, it doesn't really matter as long as the battery contains lithium and graphite. We crunch that through our hydrometallurgical, our wet chemical process, and just leach out the lithium and the graphite. So this has never been done before in that scale. Like our largest competitor, which exists, is maybe 3 times smaller, and they're like 20 years around in the market. So it's
and they're based in Europe or
in Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good company.
Interesting. And so you raised a year ago 11 million. In total, you raised 17 million so far. Like the way it works, if I summarize properly, you prove that the model is now getting ready for production, like pilot plants. So that's when you go out to raise your 11 million to actually build that plant. How do you get those people on board? Like Nordic Ninja,
they're ninjas. They know what's good. I would say, you know, like, first of all, back then, this was 1 year ago. Still fundraising is not easy for deep tech, especially if you're not AI, if you're not defense, if you're not a resilience company in that sense. It's a bit difficult to raise money, I believe. I'm not fundraising as of now, so I don't know. But I would say last year, when we did the seed round, it was very clear that we liked Nordic Ninja and Nordic Ninja liked us. Their LP structure is full of very fantastic large corporates from the Japanese side. They got Honda as their LPs, they got Panasonic as their LPs, which are very relevant to our market, right? Next to the Chinese batteries, you've got the Japanese batteries, you've got the South Korean batteries. So that has been super helpful. And the best part is the partners are all ex-founders. They know what I'm going through and they can actually help me. They're also operational. They travel to Japan with me and pitch Tozero for me and with me. So I think that's a great match. We found each other through networking and recommendation actually from our Atlantic Lab partner, Daniel. So they have been working closely together. And I would always say, if your existing investors like you, they'll introduce you to other great investors as well.
Love it. I know the Nordic Ninja people from very early on. During Slush, they're actually in their home turf, let's say, right?
Yeah, kind of. They started here in Helsinki. I think nowadays their partners are all over the place, like Estonia, London, Stockholm, and they bring more and more Japanese to the northern hemisphere of Europe. Try to get them down to Munich. Munich is quite south for them. I think we're the most southern portfolio company at Nordic Ninja.
Yeah, I thought they were only investing in the Nordics in
yeah, we broke
Nordics
that. Yeah, they made an exception. Yeah, exactly.
I was reading that there is this gap between the global demand for lithium in particular, so set to quadruple by 2030 to 3 million metric tons. But right now, mining is only producing 180,000 metric tons, right?
Yeah.
Which is like insane, the difference.
There's a huge gap.
How do you really think you can fill with your technology?
It's going to be quite hard. We will fill, but filling the other 50% that's missing by 2030 of kind of covering that demand and versus supply of the mining industry is going to be tough. So we will see a squeeze in the supply of the lithium, which is 100% controlled by the Chinese as of today. So where we position ourselves and when we talk to customers is, I want to be your local supplier. I want you to be able to have resilience in your supply chain, that you can secure your demand of these critical raw materials. So I want to be your miner of tomorrow. So that's where we actually focus on. And that is a key for our success as of now. There is no local supplier of these critical raw materials. You could cover them in the far future with recycling. I would say 50% is really reasonable. And that's also something that we're also discussing in the Northern Americas, to really be able to position recycling as an alternative source that is more reliable, of course greener, although no one cares if it's green, but cheaper. So we as Tozero, we believe in cheaper lithium carbonate that we go with recycling versus mined. It just makes sense, because just imagine in a ground when you mine it, the concentration of lithium is less than 1%. Maybe it's 0.2%, 0.6%. In a battery, if you mine that, we just see that as a mining ore. Yeah. When you mine that, the concentration is 4 to 6%. From a physical point of view, it has to be drastically cheaper. So with Tozero, what we want to provide, not just local, but cheaper, more efficient. Only with this, if you have let's say a cheaper feedstock, you can outcompete the Chinese in any industry. So with us, when we talk to customers, we are enabling you to basically outcompete the Chinese, who are always cheaper than you, because their source is cheaper. So if we can outcompete that, we do have a chance.
You also mentioned the sort of geopolitical angle, like basically your customers are worried, or they are surrounded by politicians who are worried about what's coming up.
They're finally worried. I know so many customers here in Europe, they've been screaming to the government for the last 5 years, and urging them to even have this label of critical raw materials. It's very new. It's just 1 or 2 years old. Americans have it since 1930s. The US government officially buys raw materials to help their industries to be resilient. The European Union just figured it out. They still haven't figured out that graphite is critical. Not really. They're slowly talking about it. It's a great start. Politicians are always a bit slower than companies themselves. So companies are already sourcing worldwide. How do you secure this raw material, especially if you're not in the automotive industry? Just imagine if you're a battery company, a gigafactory, you buy 100,000 tons of lithium per year. And then you're like the largest lithium provider who's not an EV company, maybe a glass company. You buy maybe maximum 5 to 10,000 tons a year. A miner will not talk to you anymore.
You're less priority. Yeah.
You're a small cap. You're not even mid cap. You're a small cap. No one cares about you. And these guys will go out of business. They will not even have supply, because once we are in 2030, when all the demand is there, but the supply is not really catching up with the demand and can only cover 50% if you leave out recycling. With recycling, we can probably get to 80, maybe even 100% by then. These guys will be left out. They cannot afford high prices, and they will just be squeezed out by the entire EV industry. And that's insane. We are talking about 300-year-old companies, 200-year-old companies that have been driving glass, ceramics, cement, lubricant industry. These are all mid-sized companies, family-owned businesses, even enterprise companies here in Europe that are going to fall short.
Okay, no stress, no pressure. I guess that's one of the reasons why you've been awarded some recognition. So we got to know about you because you won the Hello Tomorrow 2024 Global Challenge. I also read that you made the Norscan Top 100 Impact Startups list twice.
Three times. Three times in a row, yeah. Each year.
So winning those awards, what does it give you? Does it open doors? Just like a nice,
It gives me this kind of podcast.
Yeah.
It's great. I would say it doesn't change anything inside of the company. I would say for the team, it's a really nice recognition, when the team can show their families, their friends, hey, this is Tozero on the newspaper, this is Tozero on the podcast.
How big is the
in
team
media now? We're 30 people now, a bit more than 30 people. Full-time employees, maybe around 27. It's always plus minus.
Yeah.
Every week it's changing. Just this week a new lead just started, so the numbers keep changing, but around 30. So we're keeping the team very effectively small, just because we think it's more, we can sprint faster when we keep this small. And for them, it's amazing. When their families, we have a very international team. We got over 60 nationalities. So, when someone in Canada sees us in one of, the Canadian daily newspaper that we are kind of podcast there, or when we're in Forbes magazine, it's really cool. It gives you like a rush. It gives you an adrenaline. It gives you a proudness, which is one of our, I would say, culture and values at Tozero. It gives them pride. Does it change anything in the company? No. Does it open doors? Perhaps. Something I cannot measure, but it definitely gives a booster, a recognition for the team.
What about coming here to Slush? Why are you here?
So I come here each year. This is my fourth time together with my co-founder. Although my co-founder always finds it a bit difficult, she's a CTO, to actually here network. She's probably now in the hotel room working. I always try to get her out to be more social, and being networking is also working. It's something that a lot of people don't understand. But yeah, it's a very busy times at the moment. So she's doing her work, and I enjoy it. It's a very founder-centric event. Most of our shareholders are here at the event, so it's also for us really helpful to connect with the board members, to connect with shareholders, with our investors, and meet other founders. So my value here is reconnecting old faces, but also meeting other founders that are building the impossible, and I get very excited there. I learn a lot from other people, and I ask a lot of questions. So Slush is a great place to be as a founder.
Are you going to boring industry fairs?
Well,
like trade shows and stuff like that.
What is boring? I think it's exciting because we come in sometimes I feel like in these official events, we're kind of like the cool teenager kids.
You call them official events?
Yes, official events. Yes, I call them the official events, not the boring events. I call them our...
Sorry about that.
Yes, industry official events.
Yeah.
Let's say the recycling fair, the mining fair. We go to most important ones that are out there, because otherwise I will be just traveling every week. I try to minimize that. I just try to go to top 1 or 2 events per year, the top ones. I always find myself, sometimes I bring 1 or 2 employees, and there with their t-shirts with our logos or with hoodies, and I always feel like we're like the teenagers in the crowd. But that brings us very positive attention because the industry is so old that they're like, wow, there's finally some fresh wind coming in. So I always enjoy that moment because we are very different when we go out to these fairs. We show that we're startups. We show that we scale fast. We're very dynamic.
Do you exhibit?
Sometimes, for free. We don't pay. That's something I always negotiate. Yeah. If not, either we're on stage or we exhibit for free booth. There's maybe one event where we go because we have to, because all the C-level of, let's say, recyclers or miners are there, and that's where we just attend. But that's fine. Everything else we don't participate.
What's the vision for 26 and forward for Tozero?
Wow. In 2026, we're going to have the blueprint of any future mine, more or less, lithium and graphite mine out of recycling of lithium-ion batteries moving forward. So next year is going to be very fundamental for Tozero, where we're going to turn on, I always call it the Frankenstein, our first of a kind. It's literally all equipment plugged in together, all the subsystems on industrial scale. It has never been done before here in European continent or even in America. It has never been done before. We're going to bring that Frankenstein alive, and that's going to spit out lithium and graphite, and that will set the foundation, the blueprint of any other future plant. Once that works, and that's with Series A when we raise that, we're just going to take that blueprint and multiply that to other commercial plants. And the great thing about recycling is versus mining, we cannot replace mining. Like mining, you still need to dig that stuff out of the ground, even it's very inefficient. They take $500 million up to $2 billion to set up a mine. Yeah. Then it takes 10, 15 years until you actually start mining and producing the raw materials. We maybe take 2 years to set up a plant, and capex is probably 150 times cheaper. So yes, we can mine and we can do it immediately. And that's something that moving from 2026 forward, we want to push forward with, not just here in Munich or in Europe, but also in North America. Maybe even in Japan, because we got a lot of Japanese investors.
As we're wrapping up, what advice would you give to other founders building solutions where speed really matters, but the challenges are extremely high?
I think it's still a bit early for me to judge, hey, this is the right way to go, because I haven't, let's say, succeeded yet that point where I'm super satisfied. I am very judgy to myself and also the company and the team. But what has worked really well at Tozero is being very strict at the details, the fundamentals. If your foundational assumptions are right and you make good decisions based on them, you always turn up a level higher. And a lot of people, I feel, don't do the homework to really challenge the fundamental assumptions. So I'm always the annoying person in the room and say, where are your assumptions? Where are the facts and data? I don't believe you. You know, like we have whiteboards in every room in our company. Write me the formula. What's the formula that you're using? And I really challenge those fundamentals. That's one. And number two is, if there's no, you haven't reached the limit. So like what I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, break your system, break the chemistry, understand where the borderlines are. If you haven't reached it, you don't even know how good your technology is. So we really urge, especially my co-founder, also CTO, she drives the engineers crazy. You know, they're like, oh my God, we don't know, we haven't calculated it yet. And she's like, just do it, you know, just try it out. Sometimes in chemistry or physics, you don't know what works or it doesn't. You can't calculate things. So just do it. Go always 10 times bigger than what you wanted or where you feel comfortable. You shouldn't feel comfortable. Our engineers all don't feel comfortable. I feel comfortable in the, you know, I always say, if I don't know something by 80%, I feel comfortable. I can handle that black hole that I don't know. And I think for most people, that's scary.
Thank you. Where can we follow your adventures and Tozero success? LinkedIn, Instagram?
Oh, we don't do
Snapchat?
Instagram. No, we're not that modern. You know, remember, we're in the boring industry. We don't do that. We do LinkedIn, so you can for sure follow us on LinkedIn. We do cool videos, and we don't do too much spamming like maybe other companies. Only if there's like a highlight, a milestone, or an award, we show it. So yeah, you can follow us on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Sarah, for taking the time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. This was fun.
We're recording live in Helsinki during Slush 2025. Subscribe to the Selected podcast for more conversations from the front lines of European tech, and see you on Sesamers.